a groundbreaking new research project aimed at transforming how tuberculosis is detected. The initiative, known as AddiCAD, combines artificial intelligence-powered chest X-ray analysis with a simple finger-stick blood test to improve early diagnosis. The project brings together partners from Africa and Europe to tackle one of the biggest challenges in the fight against TB, missed and delayed diagnoses. To unpack this innovation, we're joined by Professor Stephanus Malherbe, who's Associate Professor at the Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences at Stellenbosch University. Professor Malherbe, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time and welcome.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
In fact, perhaps before we talk about the TB diagnostic tools, tuberculosis, as we know, remains one of South Africa's biggest public health challenges. Why are so many of these cases still being diagnosed so late, despite the tools we already have?
For a few reasons. It's a very complex disease, and one of the main challenges regarding diagnosis is it progresses very slowly. And for many people who have tuberculosis, the symptoms, feeling bad, starting to cough, actually comes relatively late in the disease. And even when the early symptoms start, for some people, it's not so easy to pick it up. And the main test for tuberculosis at the moment is sputum based, and that needs to go to the lab to detect the TB germs, the TB bugs, and that takes a while, and it takes trained personnel and specialized facilities. So the first part is the complexity of tuberculosis itself and the slow progression, and then the second part is that lab personnel, specialized lab facilities, which is not something that you can get in the periphery, in the rural areas easily. So that's an added barrier. I mean, for other important health problems, diabetes, high blood pressure, HIV, you get some kind of point of care test. You can do a finger stick blood and check the sugar. You can do a blood pressure test, and that gives you an indication if you're likely to have hypertension, and a finger stick blood for HIV. And a lot of those tests needs to be followed up by a confirmation test of some sorts to make sure it was accurate, and that it's indeed the case. So that's something, but that doesn't exist for tuberculosis, and that is something that we're trying to solve.
Yeah, I suppose that's where AddiCAD comes in, a project that combines artificial intelligence with a simple finger stick blood test. So in simple terms, how does this technology work, and what makes it different from the TB tests currently used? I mean, you've given a bit of depth there when you talk about the laboratory process and how it takes some time for those results to come back. What makes this initiative so special at such a time?
So I think it builds on a few technological developments over the past, quite a few years. And the first is small portable X-ray cameras that's pretty much the size of a big camera, but they can take pretty good digital X-rays. And then the second part is, of course, the AI revolution, and there's a specific. This is not the generative AI. This is a very specific application of artificial intelligence that can analyze images, X-ray images. And it's been trained to do that, and it gives you a likelihood of that based on this X-ray, somebody has or does not have TB. It's actually been shown to be pretty good already, but it's not a perfect. It's a likelihood, so it's not perfect. And then the other so that's the one partner is Delft Imaging in the Netherlands. Developed the CAD for TB AI algorithm, And and then at the same time, at Stellenbosch, there's some researchers that worked on developing a protein markers. So they started with testing a lot of markers in the blood, and that you can also test on fingerstick. And they showed that that also seems very promising to give you a likelihood of whether somebody has TB or not. And then we also partnered with a private company, Life SADS, who are also based in South Africa, and they make highly advanced sensors that you can basically plug into a cell phone. So now you've got, and then our team worked on putting those together and see if combining the results increases the accuracy to really make to make the impact bigger if you do it together. And that's what we're going to test now in this project. We tested it in a previous project, and it seemed very promising, like that it does increase both of the accuracies. And so now we're going to take it forward.
Okay, so as you take it forward and talk about the exciting collaboration efforts, you mentioned at the start of our conversation that symptoms will come late, and they also perhaps earlier are not so easy to pick up. And then the one factor is that speed is critical when it comes to TB diagnosis. How long does this new testing process that you've described take from screening to actually getting the result? And, perhaps, I'm hoping or thinking that it could be beneficial in reducing the long waiting periods that you described also earlier in the conversation with, results going to the laboratory and all of that.
So this will still be in line with a side room investigation, obviously, and the process of taking an X-ray takes a bit of time, and getting a finger stick takes a little bit of time, but then the actual reading the test and giving the result from both, it's really a matter of seconds, 20 to 30 seconds, and there's a result. So the clinic visit or the doctor's visit will still take a while, but that getting the result parts, it's definitely still part of that same consultation visit. So you can get an initial result immediately, and then depending on how accurate it is, we still have to figure out exactly, does it then need a confirmation test, or if you can just start somebody on treatment with our tests.
You also spoke a lot, in fact, about the role of artificial intelligence in this entire initiative. Tackling some of the questions that may arise around reliability and trust. But then the other important factor is whether or not you see this initiative as complementary to doctors, or are we looking at an instance where it could eventually replace parts of diagnostic processes? I mean, where does the doctor fall in the entire value chain?
It's a good question, and a lot of people are having conversations about that. I personally see it as a potential tool that doctors and nurses can use to help them. I don't see it. Certainly not this one we're working on, certainly replacing doctors or nurses. Somebody will still need to use that result and make a clinical decision, and it can be that decision can be simplified through clear guidelines, but there's still a little bit of interpretation. This would just be similar to a result. In this case, the artificial intelligence just helps us to get that result a little bit sooner. The alternative would have been taking an X-ray, sending that X-ray to an expert, to a radiologist or a specialized physician, and again, then you have and those people have limited time, especially in a country where there's inequality and geographical inequality. If you live far from from large city centers, that then it's more difficult to get that type of medical care.
Yeah, because it's also a country
something
with,
like this will help us decentralize those services. So it's not taking over anyone's work, it's really just helping them to do it simpler.
Yeah, and that's important because we're talking about a country which has one of the world's highest TB burdens, with HIV also increasing people's risk of developing the disease. Very lastly, before we let you go, talk to us a little bit about what stage this process is at. I mean, how far away are you from actually getting it out there and, having it complement the healthcare system?
So this this project is kind of has two large aims, and the one is testing it and make sure it works, and then the other part is, if it does work, to take it, try and take it to the market. So there's a few steps there. The one is, if we have the good results, we have to then convince institutions like the WHO and the health departments that indeed, and SAHPRA, the regulatory authority, that indeed our product is good enough to take to the market and it's safe to use in people, and work with them on how to implement it and basically get the ideal use case within the current TB programs. So yeah, that's the second part, is getting first proving it works, and then using that information to get the buy-in from the institutions and ultimately the healthcare providers, and also the patients.
Yeah, all the best to you. I mean, this really could be a game changer, perhaps the one that the continent, the world has been waiting for. Thank you for that discussion, Professor Stephanus Malherbe, who's Associate Professor at the Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences at Stellenbosch University.